Let's talk about the future of China's neighbor, Russia. And for that, let's go back to the recent past. 10 days ago, Russia's Vladimir Putin celebrated a handsome victory. Russia voted overwhelmingly in Putin's favor. According to the official numbers, Putin received 77% of the total votes cast. Russian agencies say that there was a turnout of almost 70%. These numbers should not leave any doubt over the Russian president's popularity. Putin won the election and a record fourth term as an independent. And the high voter turnout numbers give legitimacy to the mandate to Putin. But there's a slight problem. The ugly side of these elections was caught on camera. Election observers were caught stuffing extra votes into the ballots. There were 7 candidates who were challenging President Putin in this election. They were crying foul after the results. The Russian president's main challenger, Alexei Navalny, who was not allowed to contest the poll, said that it had been staged and voter numbers were rigged. But nothing could stop Vladimir Putin from securing another 6 years in office. The next 6 years so are very critical for the president as he now attempts to rebuild Russia's influence on a global stage. As per the law book, he cannot stand for re-election in 2024 unless he changes the constitution. The Russian president now faces 2 choices, as were before the Chinese president Xi Jinping not very long ago. He could either choose to groom a successor and rule from the shadows after leaving office in 2024, or could choose to do what Xi Jinping did, pass an amendment to the Russian constitution that would allow him to rule for lifetime. But this could prove to be a challenge for Vladimir Putin. Why are we talking about this? Because right after that big win, that supposedly big victory, Vladimir Putin is facing challenges both at home and outside. We'll start with what's happening in Moscow. A group of young Russian elites are waiting in the wings to stake claim to the throne. This new generation of lawmakers, or technocrats as they're often called, are exposed to the world outside Russia. They cringe at Putin's ultra-conservative agenda. They want Russian institutions to follow the law. They want Russia to be a transparent country. The new generation is steadily making its place in Russia's polity. 6 out of 85 governors in Russia are now under 40 years of age. The president himself has begun appointing young technocrats in different government ministries. In fact, he promoted them at one point. He still does. Russia's growing isolation only adds to Putin's troubles. And now we're talking about what's happening across the world. Sanctions against Russia and the fall in oil prices has slowed down the country's growth and economy. But the wrath of Western countries has given the Russian president a boost in popularity at home, some say. He's emerged as a tough leader. Putin has been able to spin the narrative against the US and its allies, blaming them for isolating Russia for political gains. Experts feel that the attack on Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia has sparked the likelihood of fresh tensions between the US, its allies and Russia, many calling it the Second Cold War.
Again, the United States and Russia are not entering into a new Cold War, but this is a volatile situation that in some ways presents more danger and unpredictability than what we saw in the Cold War. Well, this is certainly the next step in what I would call a downward spiral of U.S.-Russia relations. This is one that was started and amplified by the Russian nerve agent attack on the former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter on UK soil. And I also think that this is a good sign of U.S. solidarity with the United Kingdom.
So just to drive home the point of how isolated Russia under Vladimir Putin right now is internationally, let's take a look at how many countries have expelled Russian diplomats over the past few days. Britain says 25 countries are moving to expel Russian diplomats. Let's tell you which countries around the world have so far asked Russian diplomats to return home. We're starting with the European countries. There you have it. Ireland, Belgium, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Hungary, Romania, Croatia, all of them expelling at least 1 Russian diplomat, asking them to leave. The governments of Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands and Spain have asked 2 Russian diplomats each to leave the country. The Czech Republic and Lithuania come next, 3 Russian diplomats each for these countries. If we put them all together, this is pretty much the entire European continent. Next come France, Germany and Poland. They've asked 4 Russian diplomats each to leave. Then we look at some other countries around the world. The governments of Macedonia and Norway have expelled 1 Russian diplomat each. These are small countries, and accordingly they have taken these decisions. 2 Russian diplomats from Albania and Australia. This is across the world. Many countries in Europe will come to the North American continent in a bit. Moldova will expel 3 diplomats. Canada has decided to expel 4 Russian diplomats. And Ukraine, understandably, has decided to expel 13 Russians. The United States has expelled the most number of Russian diplomats, 60 in all, the biggest such move since 1986, we've been saying from the word go. And it started, of course, with the UK that decided to expel 23 Russian diplomats after the British government decided and declared that there was a clear Russian hand in the poisoning of the double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in the British town of Salisbury. The Kremlin so far has been silent, and that's what makes the story very, very interesting. Why is Moscow not retaliating? Moscow is calling it a provocation, but it's not retaliating. Earlier today, the Russian government spokesperson told media that they will retaliate. They've been saying this for a while, but at a time of their own choosing. Moscow, meanwhile, has raised questions over the claims made by the United Kingdom. Listen into this.
Мы надеемся на то, что страны, которые солидаризировались с Великобританией и приняли решение о высылке наших дипломатов, все-таки посчитают необходимым задуматься, насколько можно считать достоверным представленную информацию, которая подается как доказательство вот этой эфемерной причастности России к событиям Солсбери.
So what happens next? Russia is expected to give a tit-for-tat response. We just don't know when. In the past, Moscow chose to cut US diplomatic staff by 755 instead of expelling specific diplomats. After the United Kingdom expelled 23 diplomats earlier this month, Russia retaliated by ordering the British Council to cease its operations in the country. The diplomatic war is also playing out on Twitter. The Twitter account of the Russian embassy in the United Kingdom ran a poll asking users to vote on which American consulate should be closed in Russia.